This is the iGO Urban electric bike. It actually resembles the eVelo Aurora. It's almost the same bike. I've had a chance to ride them both, and I'm actually not a fan of either, in part because of the way they've got the drive mechanics set up. So you can see that little, almost looks like a little can right there under the down tube. That's the motor, and it's a mid-drive system, which is sold as being, more efficient because it actually pulls on your chain, and so you're able to take advantage of the different gears just as you would when you're riding. And by the way, this has 8 gears. The problem is that the motor, while it's fairly strong, really only turns at one speed, and so in order to fully take advantage of it and get your bike going at a decent speed, you need to shift the gears to sort of the harder gears, right? So the harder gears leverage the power of that motor, but what that means is that you end up pedaling sort of slowly instead of, keeping a decent RPM, which is how I prefer to ride, and that's actually how pro cyclists ride. They're like 100 RPM. They're keeping their legs going instead of these slow lumbering turns. In addition to just changing the way you have to ride the bike, you're putting a lot of tension, force on your chain, which means that when you're changing gears, you hear like, if you're, if you're actually throttling or you're doing pedal assist, because again, the force of the motor isn't being applied directly to the wheel, as with a hub motor, it's being applied to your chain. So, that said, let's cover some of the specs. This bike has a 10 amp hour, 36 volt battery using Samsung cells, which is, kind of standard. The way that they've enclosed the battery, though, is with this plastic shell, and it's sort of mounted on this metal frame right here. And I'm not a big fan of this, in part because you can hear this is kind of, it's kind of rattly. When you really start going over rocks or off-road or over cracks or anything like that, the whole thing kind of shakes and rattles, and it's just not connected super well. Like in the back right here, you can lock. Of course, the battery locks to the bike, and you can remove the key, which is great. A lot of electric bikes make you leave the key in, but again, I don't feel like this is. It's just kind of annoying when you're riding along and it's really loud. And then this sort of saddle rack here, it just is kind of cheap. It's small. It's got the it's spring loaded like that, so you can put something under there. But it's just not as great as if you actually had like metal tubing that you could mount panniers to. So keep that in mind. Some of the other features this bike offers are disc brakes, front and rear. That's kind of nice. Got these ergo grips right here, and then you've got a nice light right here on the front and in the rear. And when you pull the brake, it lights that up, which is cool. But again, this is these are kind of cheapy fenders, and when you're riding along, this thing bounces all over the place. So again, it's just not as high quality as some of the other solutions out there. You've got a pretty standard little computer here where you just click on, and then you can change the different modes from like low, medium, and high, which is cool. And one thing I do like is as you're pedaling along, that sort of kicks in pedal assist mode based on whatever setting you have up here. But you can also use the twist throttle at any time to sort of activate that motor. So it's nice, and in theory that's the proper decision, but again, it's sort of hindered by this mid-drive motor system. And again, I'm going to zoom in on this a little bit here. So there's the motor. Got this really heavy-duty sort of like block construction here, and I guess that's important because this is really exposed. If you go over a rock or something, you could go like right into that. So it looks pretty sturdy, but again, it's kind of in a precarious position there. I do like the kickstand they've got. It's fully adjustable. Here's the pedelec sensor, so you can see right here as these little metal pieces go by, there's a magnet in there, and it sends a signal through this wire back to the controller, which is right here in the battery pack area. So it's a pretty well balanced system, from front to rear. The weight and everything is distributed fairly well. The shock on the front is nice. It does have lockout. You've got an adjustable headset. So again, this bike, in theory, has all of the right pieces. They just don't work that well together. It's not very fun to ride because of the whole pedaling cadence issue that I talked about earlier. I'm going to go ahead and hop on it and try to demo this for you. So I've already got it turned on. I'm just going to turn it all the way up to high. There we go. And we got the twist throttle here. I actually have it in sort of a medium gear here. It's in 4, so that's kind of right in the middle. And I'm going to go from a full stop just to demonstrate like sort of the power that you could expect from this thing. So here's a nice flat stretch of road. Throttle, go. Oh, you can hear that banging. It's actually the chain kind of shifting issues. I don't know if you could hear that, but the box in the back, when I went over the speed bump, you could hear it kind of bumping around. That was the noise I was talking about. I'm going to do it again, so listen. So you can hear that. It's just not, it's not ideal. So I don't think I have to go too much further to illustrate some of the points we talked about a minute ago. Bike's kind of noisy when you go over bumps. You're pulling really hard on the chain. It's not very satisfying to ride. I really wouldn't recommend this bike unless you're a huge fan of the center motor setup. It's just not a style I really appreciate. Good luck. For the full written review, pictures, and other electric bikes, including a top 10 list, check out ElectricBikeReview.com. Thanks.